Tourette's podcast is not a medical advice show. It's a show about experiences. In the course of that, we may talk about medications or therapies or stories from the doctor's office, but don't mistake any of that for medical advice or direction. It's not. Get that only from people or places licensed or certified to give it, not from a massively fun and action-packed podcast about our life experiences. Such as?
We saw the neurologist, and the neurologist just said, yeah, he has Tourette's. This is what it is. And they give you a pamphlet, and they kind of just pat you on the back and say good luck, you know?
This is Tourette's Podcast, made possible with support of the Tourette Association of America and part of the Geeks Rising Network.
Please leave your message after the tone.
Hey Ben, it's Lauren. So I actually referenced episode 0 of Tourette's podcast at my therapy appointment on Tuesday because there were a couple anecdotes about my own childhood in there that were helpful for what we were working on. So thank you for that.
Stay home.
Hey Ben, and everyone listening to Tourette's podcast. My name is Heather, and I just wanted to send a little bit of sunshine your way. I wanted to let you know that you matter and you are so important to the world, and together we can shine bright and light it up. It's sometimes the little things that we often take for granted that, bring us the most joy, whether that being noticing the sun on a flower outside, or hearing a bird chirp, or enjoying our pets, or having a call or a chat with a friend. All of those little things, we can savor each moment as they come and use that as fuel to help keep us going. I wanted to send you a lot of love and sunshine from my neck of the woods, which is down in New Zealand. And yeah, thank you so much for Tourette's podcast. It's an amazing resource, but also an amazing space. And I am really grateful for it as a listener. And thank you so much to Ben and everyone who's participated. You guys rock. Until next time, be empowered by nature.
Thanks so much to Lauren, Haley, and Heather, the great New Zealand voice from the Sunshine and Power Cuts podcast, for the audio submissions this week. And Lauren, by the way, is my amazing sister, really supportive about therapy and mental wellness. She was referring to episode 0 of season 1, which is my backstory. If you'd like to send in an audio message to be played on the show, anything you want, any random thought about TS or not, any question, any piece of feedback, a hello, a correction, all that rhymed and that was completely unintentional. Anyway, everything is welcome. Record it as a voice memo on your phone or what have you and email it to tourettespodcast@gmail.com. Happy to have anything you want to send, just no political statements or advertisements for products, etc. Let's just keep this real and have fun. Thank you so much to the feedback on episode 0 of this season 5, which started last week. If you haven't listened to that one, I opened up about my experience recently as an inpatient at a hospital in the treatment of my anxiety and depression issues, which a lot of people with TS deal with. A good number of you sent in your personal stories. Even if I didn't get the chance to respond yet, I've read everything you've sent me. Thanks so much for opening up. And a couple people actually said it was the nudge they needed to get similar help for themselves, which is absolutely amazing to hear. I've got a couple other pieces of mail to read you here from the general mailbag. First one comes from a listener named Thomas, who asks, what has been your favorite moment in doing the Tourette's podcast? Thanks, Thomas, for a difficult question. And I've been sitting on this question for a couple weeks. I wanted to time it with this episode because this episode itself gets at one of my favorite moments. And we'll talk about that shortly, but it involves getting to meet listeners in person last fall. It was during a sort of Tourette's podcast business trip to California with the Tourette Association, and I got to meet some people I didn't expect to meet. And we're going to hear from one of them on this episode. So that's coming right up. I think anytime I get to meet somebody because of this podcast, it's automatically a favorite thing. Thank you, Thomas, for your question, which he sent to tourettespodcast@gmail.com, and you can too. I have another one here this week sent in by Kelly, kind of revisiting a subject we talked about a couple seasons ago, and it continues to be an interesting one. She writes, Hi Ben, my name is Kelly, and I recently saw a discussion about TS and twins, and was wondering if anybody else had any thoughts. I'm an identical twin with Tourette's. My twin sister does not have TS, and to me that is strange. Since identical twins have the same DNA, what will cause one to have it and the other not? I know mutations in genes can happen as the baby grows, however, I'm not sure that TS appears from a gene mutation. So, if it is not caused by a gene mutation, what may be the cause for the difference? Does anyone have experience where both twins have TS, or is it more common that only one has it? We are 17 now, and I'm not diagnosed. I hope nothing here came off as ignorant or insensitive. Thanks so much for the podcast. I love listening to it. It brings positivity and lessens stigma about our community." End quote. Thank you, Kelly. If there's someone from the research community listening who can answer this and make it a conversation, that would be excellent to get back to on the next episode or as soon as we can. I posted this one link before from Tourette.org, which I think Kelly had alluded to the past conversation we had about this. There's a genetics Q&A at Tourette.org, and one of the questions comes from the dad of identical twin sons with Tourette syndrome. I think I've read this part before, but it's so interesting I'd like to read it again. It says here, quote, "Most of what we know about TS in twins comes from a few relatively small studies of TS and tic disorders carried out with siblings. These studies indicate about 50 to 70% of identical twin pairs with the same genetic endowment will both have TS. And the other 30 to 50% of identical twin pairs, only one of the twins will express the disorder. Concordance rates, meaning cases where both twins have the same syndrome or symptom, are higher for tic disorders in general. In 70 to 95% of identical twin pairs where one twin has some type of tic disorder, including TS, the other twin will also have a tic disorder. Also, we've learned that in families where both twins have TS or another chronic tic disorder, one twin's symptoms may be more severe than the other. It is thought that these differences in severity may be associated with a variety of environmental factors. For example, in one study, the identical twins who had more severe symptoms also had lower birth weights than their co-twins with milder symptoms. In other words, twin studies suggest that although TS is an inherited condition, there is a great deal of variability in the expression of TS, and this variability is likely due, at least in part, to environmental factors. As far as we know, the prognosis of TS, that is, the way the disorder develops, progresses, or improves over time, is no different in twins than in other people." End quote. And that's from an article that originally appeared in the Tourette Association's quarterly newsletter, Winter 2009. So what I just read is more than a decade old, and the research continues as it does, so researchers, hit me back with some thoughts about this. I'd love some updates, but to cite the source of what I just read, it's from Carol Matthews, MD, who at the time was Associate Professor of the Program for Genetics and Epidemiology of Neuropsychiatric Symptoms, Department of Psychiatry at the University of California, San Francisco, and she was at the time a member of the Tourette Association Medical Advisory Board. This is the kind of stuff I'm really into, these curiosity questions, and I know we've got a million of them. Shout out to the research community because those people know way more about TS than a lot of us realize. Shout out, as always, to Drs. Christine Canalia and Matthew Capriati. Speaking of Dr. Capriati, who we've heard on the podcast before and have interacted with directly through the Treating Tourette Together, or TTT Summit last year. If you'll recall, that was an event that brought Tourette medical providers, researchers, and Touretters themselves all together on the same page, in the same venue, in the same room to discuss what research questions we need to answer and how these questions should be applied. Like, if we're going to do this kind of work at all, what's the best way to help the Tourette community? So that was Treating Tourette Together, or TTT, which I got to participate in. That was really great. So anyway, I got an email recently from Dr. Capriati right as the pandemic was really starting to change our lives in a practical sense. And at the time he said, quote, "People with TS are incredibly resilient and draw huge amounts of strength from their families, friends, and many special hobbies, skills, and talents. We hope that you and yours are finding fulfillment, joy, and peace in these positives during these times." He goes on to say, "We are thrilled to announce that our Treating Tourette Together community report is available." And I'm going to link to this at tourettespodcast.com. He continues, "This document is a full overview of what TTT was all about and what came out of it. It is much more detailed than the previous executive summary, but without the massive length and jargon of the full research agenda. We hope that this is something you will enjoy checking out and also consider sharing with others in your network, including your local TAA chapter. We continue to be so proud of all that we have accomplished together in TTT. Our present challenges only deepen this gratitude for the work we can do together through TTT and for our shared sense of purpose in bettering the lives of people with TS. Again, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your contributions to this effort. This is the final product of our TTT project, but this is not the end to our mission. You can continue to access all of our reports and information at treatingtourettetogether.org. We also look forward to being in touch about opportunities to be involved in future research-related projects. In the meantime, the TAA offers many channels to be involved in TS awareness, support, and research. Wishing you health, peace, and strength." and that's signed by the TTT team. Amazing people we're going to hear from, more of them anyway, pretty soon. And speaking of getting things done together, quick reminder that the Tourette Association of America will hold its inaugural virtual conference for free, thanks to generous supporters, on May 15th and 16th, 2020. The virtual conference will provide a forum for the Tourette syndrome and tic disorder community to learn and engage with each other throughout a variety of web-based sessions. Information being presented is geared toward adults, parents, teens, educators, and medical professionals in the TS community. Check out the schedule of events at touretteconference.org for all sessions being offered and register for the sessions you were interested in attending. From yoga to sessions about adulthood with TS and everything around and in between, it's a pretty robust agenda. touretteconference.org. Okay, so let's get to our seriously amazing guest this week, Daisy. She's the mother of a young boy with Tourette syndrome, and this conversation is seriously engaging, like not exaggerating. The deeper we go with it, the more raw things we get about being a parent of a child with TS. This is definitely one to listen to, doesn't matter who you are. She even talks about some not so great advice she got from her neurologist with respect to how Tourette would be a part of her son's life and what they should be doing about it, even to cover it up. Seriously, just listen. Lots of important, raw points on this episode. Daisy is an amazing mother, and really just listen to the points she makes about how she's been there for her son and advocated for him and fought through a difficult starting point when it comes to perspective and access to care and attitude. Like seriously, she's fought for it, and it's really cool to listen to. To clarify one thing, there are a few references to 504 plans. And if you don't know what that is, in the education setting, these are accommodations for children with recognized disabilities. Again, something Daisy had to fight to get for her son. So anyway, we hit a lot of big points with Daisy, and then we get a special guest at the very end, which made my night. Here's my talk with Daisy, and last note real quick. Listen to what we say at the very end regarding pen pals or email pals for kids. Just setting that up for kids who, or adults who want someone else their age to write back and forth with or video chat with or whatever's appropriate. Somebody else with TS in the world that you can interact with. Just to have that connection.
So my name is Daisy, and I live in San Marcos, California, which is San Diego County in California. And I am the parent of a child with Tourette syndrome.
How long has it been since the diagnosis, and how old is he now?
So he is 8 years old, and he was officially diagnosed a year ago in February. His diagnosis was in the end of February and of 2019. So
I haven't met him, but I did have the pleasure of meeting you and your husband, which wasn't planned or expected or anything. I met you guys in Los Angeles at the Tourette Association screening of Motherless Brooklyn, the Ed Norton movie, and Ed Norton himself came out. He introduced the movie. He made some comments about what inspired him to kind of play that character, a fictional character with Tourette syndrome. And it was a treat because it was one of the best, maybe the best mainstream portrayal I've ever seen of Tourette syndrome. He did such an amazing job, and it was so cool, like hearing him talk about it. But, what I was saying before, like no disrespect to Ed Norton because it was amazing to see him there. But my highlight was getting to meet people from the community, including you guys. And it wasn't expected or anything like that. You guys just came up and said, hey. And so being from San Diego, you guys had to make a bit of a drive. Could you tell us what made you want to make that drive from San Diego to Los Angeles to be at that movie showing?
Yeah, of course. So my husband had been following the Tourette's Association through Twitter, and he had seen a tweet that they had put out and said that the movie would be available for anyone with Tourette's or family, and we jumped on the opportunity because we have tried very hard to just, even if we have to make a drive, it was about a 2.5 hour drive to Los Angeles, but it was definitely worth it. And especially because just getting to meet you was really a highlight for me. And, and my husband was the one who actually saw you, and he said, is that Ben? I was like, oh my gosh, that is Ben. And, I had been talking about you, every day, all day. And, my husband was like, Ben, it's all about Ben, but it's because it was Ben says this. And when Ben said this today, and Ben, and because when we found out about our son's diagnosis, we kind of dived into learning everything and anything that we could. We went online, we bought books, we did everything. And honestly, out of everything out there, the Tourette's podcast was just, I think, the best thing that the best decision that I ever made was and it was a very scary decision because I wasn't sure what it was about. It just says Tourette's podcast. And I was really scared because I had seen a lot of things about Tourette's, and I know the stigma around Tourette's, and I wasn't sure what it was actually going to be about, but, right. I just decided to just do it and listen. And I listened from episode 0, and by the time we went to Los Angeles to see the movie, I was up to date. So I did binge, all of the Tourette's podcast. And so I knew exactly who you were, and I was really excited. And and my husband was like, well, get a picture with him. And I know he went up to you. I was so embarrassed, but I was so excited at the same time. And so thank you so much for that experience. And I know I came home and, I shared it with my kids, and I was so excited about it because, Tourette's podcast has really meant a lot to me. It has really, like I said, just listening to people that actually have Tourette's and knowing what they're going through and, what I can expect, because with your podcast, you've had people in their 20s, you've had people, that are older. And I just knowing that everything is going to be okay and it doesn't matter. Just, I feel like it's been a roller coaster. My son has had really bad days when his tics just really go out of control, and it's been really hard, and I know that this is this is how it's going to be, and I'm okay with it now. As soon as I started listening to the podcast and really just paying attention to everything that everyone would say and their experiences, I put all the rest of the books down, and we just kind of accepted the diagnosis, and we just said, okay, we need to just prepare ourselves and accept everything that Tourette's brings, because that's the thing. You can read any book you want, and nothing is actually set in stone. That's not how it's going to go, And for us, I know it's been a struggle because everything's so new, but the Tourette's podcast has definitely been a huge help for us. And so I definitely want to thank you so much for everything that you've done. And, it's just amazing to be able to have that and know exactly what my son is talking about. I was telling you that, there was one day when my son was trying to explain this, because he was getting a lot of headaches and his ear was hurting. And then when he started trying to explain his tick that he has, he was telling me, it's like, I'm popping my ear, but when you're in the airplane and when you're and when your ear pops, or when we've gone to the snow and when you're going up the mountains and your ear is popping, that's how I feel. And I was like, oh, okay, so you have the ear popping tick. And he's like, do you have that? And I said, no, but Ben talked about it. So I knew exactly what he was talking about. And I was able to reassure him that he was okay, because he was so scared. And, a lot of the ticks that are new to him scare him. And, and he looks to me and, and to my husband, like, as his parents, he wants us to be able to answer any questions that he has. And we don't have the answers. And I didn't know where to turn to, but now I can say that I feel more confident and he feels more supported, by us. Wow. Just reassuring him that it's okay. And, he's going to have bad days and he's going to have good days. And, and we take it one day at a time now. We're not looking further out.
That's so important to have that. I mean, I love that attitude about, instead of seeing it as something where you have to kind of spend your days figuring out how to fix it, it's more about kind of integrating it into your life. And if it's going to be here, like, maybe it will go away, but if it doesn't, even if it does go away, but maybe it goes away in his teenage years, like that's still enough time for it to have like a lifelong impact on him in terms of, social consciousness and interaction with other people and confidence and all of that. And I mean, that can really ripple into your adulthood, even if your tics go away. And so I think it was something Amanda Talty, from the president of the Tourette Association, was saying, that, you don't really meet people who say, I used to have Tourette syndrome. Even if their tics have gone away, it's still kind of stuck with them that they had this thing that they've had to deal with and had to find ways to explain to other people. Yeah. And so, making the world a nicer place for it by giving support at the home and having really good parental support is such a massive thing. So you don't feel like you're just completely on an island, because a lot of people who have TS don't know other people who have TS. It's not an extraordinarily rare thing as far as disorders go, but it's not something that you just see every day with people. And I didn't have any friends growing up. I had a pen pal, but I didn't have any friends like around me who had Tourette syndrome. So I was just kind of like by myself with that. And the lifelong friends that I made from that time period, which were kind of few, were the ones who didn't judge me by it, or didn't judge me negatively by it. And I felt okay, so having that at the home, it's not like you're giving up on improving, the situation. If there may be painful tics that you want to get a handle on, but at the same time, you're not just like condemning a part of your life that is going to be an effective part of your life and the adult that you're going to become. So I think it's amazing that you've adopted that approach as a parent. And I really hope other parents who are new to this are listening to that, just because it's a concerning thing. It's really scary. It's a roller coaster, like you were saying, but it's definitely a part of your personality, kind of whether you like it or not. I think you had mentioned before that before his diagnosis, you were aware of what Tourette syndrome was. How much did you know by that point? Or do you remember the very first time you heard of what Tourette syndrome was and what maybe your impressions were of it?
So, I mean, I honestly had seen it on movies. And, I want to say it was like that Deuce Bigelow or something. And I didn't really know too much about it. I just remember seeing that movie and that's kind of what I had. But then I worked in a continuing care center for a while. And so I heard about Tourette's in a different way, like in I don't know how to explain it to you. Maybe just the definition of it,
Yeah.
but I had never actually really seen someone with actual Tourette's, and I just knew what it was from a book,
Gotcha.
and that was it. And then when I started noticing my son blinking a lot, I mean, because I want to say that his tics probably started really early on. I mean, when I listened to, what was it, episode 0, when your mom was talking about how you didn't like to sleep as a baby, and that was just so weird to her. And I was like, oh my gosh, like we always thought that it was so odd, because Angel is our second child. And so with our first child, he would take his naps and, but Angel just never liked taking naps. And it was just harder for him to sleep. It was like, I don't know. It was just so different. And just everything that I heard your mom say, I was like, oh my gosh. I wonder if this is something very common in kids with Tourette's, because I know that till this day, he has a very hard time falling asleep. Sleep is not, it's not his friend. He just doesn't. He also has anxiety, and and he has OCD, and he has a little bit of sensory issues, and so a lot of things prevent him from really getting a good night's sleep. But we had noticed the blinking when he was about 4, maybe 5, and we just thought, oh, maybe he's watching TV too much, or he's playing on the iPad too much. So we would take it away, and then we would see it would go away. So then we kind of excused it, and anything that we saw him doing, we just excused. It was just, I don't know, like, don't do that anymore. And it was just, we tried to, I don't know, just excuse it. And finally, I think, stress makes the tics get worse. And of course, our oldest son was getting ready to go to college. And so in his senior year, which was really, for him, it was like one of the most exciting years. I think for Angel, it was really, what set off the tics really bad. And that's when we said, okay, we need to figure this out. We need to know what he has, because in my heart, I already knew it was Tourette's. And, but I don't know why. I just felt maybe that if we had a diagnosis, that things would get better somehow. And, we went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, okay, I know he has tics. That is, I can clearly see it, but, you need to go to the neurologist. And to see a neurologist, it took us like 6 months, to even be able to see the neurologist, and that's with the pediatrician sending a note saying, you need to see this child. And it was about 6 months. And then finally last year in February, we saw the neurologist, and the neurologist just said, yeah, he has Tourette's. This is what it is. And they give you a pamphlet, and they kind of just pat you on the back and say good luck, And it was like, wow, I was really waiting for, I don't know. I don't know what I was waiting for. I guess I was thinking that as soon as we got a diagnosis, we would know exactly what to do, and we would just, have that magic pill where he would take, and it would all go away, and he would just stop the tics, and just everything would get better. And that's not how it works. And, you're just kind of thrown out there, and you don't know what to expect. You read the pamphlets, but like I said, I had already read it in a book. I already learned about this. This is not what, that's not what I wanted or what I even needed. I don't know what exactly I needed either, but that's when we just did all the research we could, and we changed diets, and we did a lot of things thinking this is going to make it better. And, and then you see that time where it kind of goes away. It's not, but it really doesn't go away because, but then, when I would talk to Angel, I would ask him, are your tics, I've noticed that your tics are, really going down, and like I don't see them happening. And he's like, oh no, I am. I have this tic where I roll my stomach, and I'm like, oh, there are tics that I don't see. And so when I started listening to the podcast, I heard like all these invisible tics, and I thought, my poor son, this is exactly what he's been talking about, all these tics that we think have gone away, that he's not ticking because he's not moving his head, or he's not blinking, or he's not, he's not grunting or sniffling or, coughing, or he's not doing the ones that we can see or hear. He's doing the ones that are very invisible to us, but, he's feeling them, and he's going through all these things. And so, like I said, Tourette's podcast has really opened my eyes, really helped me to see and feel for him every day, because, it's a struggle.
It's just kind of a reminder to people listening, especially, this is something to pay attention to for people, I guess, kind of outside the Tourette community to recognize, is that it can occur in your family. It's not as rare as people make it out to be. You could have a child with Tourette, or your friend's child could develop Tourette symptoms. And that's one reason why it's just really important to, I guess the dream is that people know enough about this at a common level to where there isn't so much anxiety at the parental level with having a kid or having a child who has TS. Because there's a million disorders out there, and we can't be educated about all of them, but at least kind of having some recognition that it's not what is always portrayed in the movies. It's, it can be quite different.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is, like with all these different neurological disorders that you could have, is that the level of shame, just, like, don't buy into that so much. It's, you still have a human being on your hands who, could be really smart, really talented, really funny, really just, with all kinds of things to offer the world. And those things will come out in a supported person. If you didn't support your child and that person grew up feeling unloved, what level of confidence are you going to have in the skills that you, but it is a reminder that, it can occur. You don't have to have seen it in your family previously for it to all of a sudden manifest in a child you have.
The one thing I do have to tell you is, well, obviously you met us, and so you probably could tell we're Mexican, and so the culture is so different. It's so, we grow up with so many things that, I don't think our parents tell us, but just, because we grew up with other Mexican families and other Mexican kids, and, maybe other kids are not as accepting. And so you kind of learn things that maybe you shouldn't, and it's really sad to say, but we were really scared of not that we didn't think that our family would not support us, but, because, our family was born and raised in Mexico, and the culture is just so different. We didn't know how our parents would react to the diagnosis. And in the beginning, the neurologist told us, this is something that you don't want to talk about. And that's really sad now that I think about it, because she was the one who set that in our heads. She said, don't talk about it because then people will see him different. And even if, especially your family, because they will want to treat him differently. And so it kind of made sense to us just because we didn't know anything. We were just getting the diagnosis and we didn't know. And so we did keep it from our family for quite a while. We actually spoke to them right before his 8th birthday, which was in September. And, together, my husband and I just kind of came to the agreement of, you know what? If we want him to feel supported, if we want our son to really know that we are there for him, we should be able to show that. It doesn't matter, who knows. And, if they support him, then he'll know he's really, who's really there for him, and that was important to us. And so when we told our family, at first, I'm not going to lie, they were really sad. I don't think we were able to explain exactly what Tourette's is, because to translate it to Spanish, and there wasn't a lot that we could kind of show them in Spanish, because our parents speak Spanish, and so we had to explain it to them, and it was hard. I think they didn't know what the diagnosis actually meant. But once we tried explaining, and they saw Angel, and they saw, nothing changed. He's still such a happy kid. He's so sweet. And he, none of that has changed. It's just, he has tics, but nothing else has changed. He's the same Angel that you knew before we told you what he had, So
right.
Once we made that clear, I think everyone, was just, straight from the beginning, they felt for him. I think they were worried because we said it's a neurological disorder. They were worried that, something was wrong with him, or that he was suffering in some way. But once we kind of explained everything, it's been so much better, and we have had so much support from our family, from my husband's side, from my side, everyone has really just, we recently went on a walk downtown in San Diego. So it's about a 30-minute drive for us. And, all of our family went out and supported Angel, and, we all did it. It was through the Southern California, Tourette's Association, and it was really, really nice. So that I just wanted to get out there, because it really has a lot to do with the culture as well. When you get the diagnosis, it's not as easy. I want to say, I can only speak on my culture, because I know that we're not as open-minded, and I think it was really hard for us as well, to be able to accept the diagnosis. And that's why I think we dived into exploring, how do we get rid of this? How does this, get better? Yeah. And then once we accepted it, and once we, we said, this is something that he's going to live with forever, and we need to accept that, and we need to just be here for him and learn how to help him. Then things changed, but so that was a little hard, but
this makes me think of another question. So have you connected with other families, Mexican families who have kids with TS, or have you found a community that is already also kind of familiar?
No, there is, honestly, there is not much. Okay, so we did sign up for a support group through the Children's Hospital here in San Diego. And so every time they have a meeting, like, we go because, you know, we try to involve Angel in anything and everything that we can so that he could feel that he's not alone. And the closest chapter that's here is the Southern California, which is located in Los Angeles. The Children's Hospital provides support groups, I want to say maybe twice a year. And so we've gone to both of the support groups that they've had, and there have been no other Mexican families. It's only, you know, like, I mean, it's not. We're the only Mexican family in there. And, you know, I don't know how to reach out to anyone else because, you know, that's the sad part about it, that in our culture, it's like, you hide it. You don't really talk about it. And, you know, it's not anybody else's business. And, you know, and you just hide it. And that's what we definitely don't want to do. And, you know, and we just tell Angel it's okay. Like, you don't have to hide it because this is who you are, and this is, you know, and whoever's going to like you, they're going to like you because you are your Angel. You know, there's nothing wrong with you, and they have to accept you for who you are, and you don't have to hide it, because going to a public school has, I mean, it has its benefits and it has its bad things as well. I mean, I'm
sure,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, you know, because we reached out to you, or, well, my husband reached out to you and said, hey, can we talk about 504 plans? You know, and you responded and you said, hey, let's have something with, you know, with this. And then the Tourette's Association also did a webinar, and we did the webinar. We tried to get a 504 as soon as we could. And, you know, and the school where Angel goes to was really polite about it, and they politely denied the accommodation. You know, they said,
why did they deny it?
So they said that because he's doing great. Academically, he's doing great. He does not have any issues. You know, he's proficient in all of the school. As far as school, he's proficient in everything. And therefore, they didn't feel like he needed any accommodations because he wasn't struggling academically. So, you know, then we had to, I am very fortunate enough to work with someone that is actually an attorney for the school system, I guess. And so she said, you know, if you want, I can go with you and represent you. And so I said, okay, that would be amazing. And then we were having trouble with substitutes. Angel is very lucky enough that he has had great teachers. The teachers have been amazing. And even without a 504, they were accommodating him. But, you know, the substitutes, they don't have to know that he has Tourette's. They don't have to know it because he doesn't have a 504. Well, now he does, but before he didn't have it. And so they didn't know what he had. And there's a lot of tics that Angel has that they're facial tics. And to anybody that just sees him may think that he's trying to make faces at them or just trying to be silly. You know, he has a lot of facial tics. And I think that was getting him in trouble with the substitutes. Every time he had he had trouble with 2 substitutes. And, you know, and each time he felt like they were picking on him. And, you know, we had enough, and we made another attempt for the 504, and even then they said, he's doing great academically. He doesn't need the accommodations. And, we told him, no, he does need them because, this is happening to him with substitutes, with teachers that you guys are bringing in, And so they said they needed a recommendation from the neurologist. And we went to the neurologist, and the neurologist said, this is ridiculous. I can't believe that they're asking you for my recommendation. They should know better. And so we went back and we told them exactly what the neurologist said. And then they said, okay, let's go ahead and give him the accommodations. What accommodations do you guys need? And they were really simple. We just needed him to have breaks, when, as you can suppress the tics for a little bit, but then he needed to just even knowing that he can take a break made him feel better.
It takes the pressure off.
Yes. And so that's all we were really asking for. He was able to get a little chair. It's like a rocking chair. And, that kind of, he says it helps him, because it relieves some tension that he has, and it helps him suppress his tics, and and that's really the biggest ones that we ask for. And just for him to be able to go to a teacher that he knew and that knows that he has Tourette's, and so he doesn't have to feel like they are picking on him, so whenever his teacher isn't there, then he gets to go to a teacher that he does know, and and just be there and not have to deal with someone who doesn't know and isn't aware of his tics, and and doesn't judge the tic stats.
That's a big part of it, is having that acceptance and familiarity with someone who, because otherwise, if you're always in the position, especially if he's young as he is 8, if he's always in the position where he needs to kind of reprove himself or reintroduce himself, or just to make sure that the people around him know what the deal is, that's a big boulder to push uphill, all the time, having to interact with new people who have some sort of decision-making power over him, like a teacher would. So having that familiarity and that comfort level so he can focus on his own education and take practical breaks. And, it's not like you guys are trying to take advantage of the education system to give him an easier kind of cheating level time. You want something that's actually going to work for him.
Exactly.
How has that gone?
You know what? It was approved at the end of January. And
so it's brand new.
Yes, so very brand new. And he was doing great. He was doing so great. I mean, he still tried to suppress as much as he could, because obviously he's still, I'm not going to lie, he's still a little embarrassed.
I am too.
Yeah. And so, the kids, even though they knew, and, his friends, his closest friends, I spoke to their mom and said, hey, this is what Angel has. Let me know what I can help you with. How, do you know what Tourette's is? And I explained it to them. And, one of them actually went to the walk in San Diego. That's his very best friend. And, he's been very supportive with him, and he knows. But the other kids that sit next to him would notice his head jerking and his eye blinking, and and they would ask him, and he tells them, oh, it's my Tourette's, and he's like, Mom, they just keep asking me, and I've already told them, and and so we had to have the nurse go in and speak to them, and just so that they knew that this is what Tourette's is. And so he still does try to suppress. And so as soon as we pick him up in the car, as soon as he gets in the car, it's, he's ticking away. And the whole evening in the house, he's ticking, but we understand that it's because he's more relaxed at home and he doesn't need to hide it. And, and it's okay. And, we're okay with that. But he felt like once he got his 504, he was doing really, really good. He was really happy to go back to school because school was becoming really hard for him. And he just didn't even want to go to school because he was scared. He was scared of being picked on by teachers, and he didn't know if he would have a substitute, because they don't let him know ahead of time. He just shows up to school and, well, today you have a substitute, so he was always scared of that. And now he wasn't scared, and he was glad to go to school again. So yeah, it was good.
We'll be right back. The Tourette Association of America is the premier nonprofit working to raise awareness, advance research, and provide ongoing support to those with Tourette syndrome or tic disorder. With a network of over 130 chapters, support groups, and centers of excellence, the TAA engages with communities across the nation in an effort to provide tools, webinars, workshops, and support for all seeking assistance. As a primary sponsor of Tourette's podcast, the TAA supports the authentic conversations showcasing the diverse representation of the TS community. To learn more, visit tourette.org, TOURETTE.org. So has he found, I know, it's still pretty early on, but has he found certain subjects that he seems to excel at more than others? Like any particular interest levels that you're seeing in him?
Math. I think math has been one of the things that he has always done really good in. And, it doesn't take him a whole lot, just once you show him how to do the problem and he gets right on it, and he's really, really good. He really likes it. He enjoys it. Anything that has to do with math, he really, really enjoys. So I think math has been his strong thing. And music, in school, he really loves music, and he just has a different ear for it. I don't even know how to explain it to you. He listens to the music so differently than I do. That's for sure. We'll be listening to a song and he's like, "Can you hear that beat?" And I'm like, "What beat? I don't know what you're talking about." And he hears this specific beat and he can, tell me exactly what beat he's talking about and how it goes. And I'm like, honestly, I had not heard that beat. And he's like, "How can you not hear it?" And I was just telling my husband that we were watching a movie and he said, "Mom, I know that song. I don't know what it's called, but I know that song because it was on another show that I watched and we had it recorded and there were so many recordings of that show and he knew exactly which episode to go on, what moment in that episode that song was on. And, music is really important to him. I said enough that he knew exactly what, part of the show that song was on. And that was the same exact song. And I thought that is just, that had never happened to me. I don't know anybody who, anybody else that had ever done that in front of me, or I had never seen that before. So that was really cool for me. And it just happened. And I told my husband about it and he said, "Yeah, that's Angel." And that is him. He's really into music. He really does enjoy music and math. Those are his subjects that he loves.
That's so cool. And the reason I asked that is because, again, going back to, if he wasn't supported, or, just thinking of families, because we've heard this on the podcast before of people saying they didn't have support at home, or they were always disciplined when they were ticking. And sometimes, like the subjects that they are kind of naturally good at, like music or art or math, whatever it is, end up being more of an escape rather than something that they have a lot of thrust behind because they have family support and they feel like they can be, proud of what they're doing and they can tell people about it. And, he can share that stuff with you guys, and you guys can encourage him all the more to pursue this stuff. How do you think he feels about all this?
We are very open about talking about Tourette's and everything, but we always go and talk to him first. Anything that we do, even, the podcast, when you said that we could do it, or if we, if we should do it or anything. I went and I had a talk with him and I said, what do you think? I mean, because this is your story. This is about you.
Yeah.
I can't just decide because this isn't about me. Like, I don't have Tourette's, it's you.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yeah, do it. And he said,
so cool.
I don't want to talk because he's really shy. And he says, I don't want to talk, but yeah, that would be nice. And, and he really appreciates all the support. And so I recently posted on my Instagram that we try to wear teal. And if anybody in our family wears teal, he always thanks us and always says, oh, I know why you're wearing that. I know that you're
so cool.
supporting me. And, and he always, he sees even, those little rubber band bracelets that that the Tourette's Association gives out. So when we went on the walk, we all got one, and he notices who wears it, and he sees when people wear anything teal or support him in any way, and he really, really appreciates it. And and he right now he's very open about it, and he will say, I have Tourette's, or there have been people that will ask him why he's wearing a shirt. He has a shirt that says, Tourette's awareness. And I believe, it was like a teacher in school, not his teacher, but a teacher. And he just, she said, do you know anyone with Tourette's? And he said, yes, I have Tourette's. And so he's very open about it. But at the same time, we do try to respect when, if he says, I don't want this person or I don't want you to say that I have Tourette's, then we respect that, because we feel like we can't just go above him, and just because we're his parents, we can't choose to just put him out there if he doesn't want to, so we try to be cautious in everything that we do, but we do try to show him support in every way that we can. And whatever we've done and anything that we've done, like I said, we always run it by him. And, if it's something that he's going to go to, like the walk, it was a walk run. But when we went down there, we did speak to him and we said, we would like to go. And we asked him, who would you like us to invite? And, who do you want us to reach out to? And he told us, and we did exactly what he said, because we do want him to feel supported, but we also want him to know that he's the one on the driver's side, not us, because this is his experience, and this is something that he's living with. We're just here to support him, but we can't.
Yeah, if you do kind of lean on him to put himself out there and just really always openly accept it and always talk about it, that's pressure too. Yeah. And it's got to be his pace. And I love it that you respect that. As long as he knows that he has support at home and it's okay for him to talk about it and accept it. And, but again, yeah, it's his thing. Just like with anything, any, quote unquote, health issue or personal situation. I mean, it's nobody's business but his. And, it's a big deal because it's part of his life, but it's really great that you're approaching it that way, because it's respect for him and his story. And that's really, I think, kind of that's the bottom line ultimately, I think, for all of us, is what we just want to, have due respect and not be slighted because you may not understand where we're coming from. And, I don't tell every single person in the world who I know that I have Tourette syndrome. If it comes up or they notice something about me or if they notice a tic, then, sure, that's an open door to start talking about it if I want to. And otherwise, he can just kind of hang out, eat pizza, do whatever he wants,
Exactly.
And do whatever kids do.
Yes. And that's what we tried to do. He was in soccer for the first time in the fall, and no one in his team knew except for one of his teammates, and that was only because she was his church teacher. And so, we've known her for longer, and so she was the only one who knew. But I really did have to tell her, this is Angels, and I would really like it if you just, if you didn't say anything, unless he says something to the rest of the kids, because I didn't, he's still allowed to be a kid. And, they were all his teammates and nobody ever said anything. And he was a kid. He didn't have to explain himself to anyone. He didn't have to let them know. And I feel like he doesn't have to wear a tag all the time that says, I have Tourette syndrome, and, ask me questions. You know what I mean? Like, it's whatever he wants and whoever he wants to tell. And so I did talk to her, and she was so amazing. She never said anything, and it never came up. And he really enjoyed that, because he was just playing soccer, and he was just enjoying himself, and he's just being a kid, without any eyes on him or anything, I mean, I know that he has Tourette syndrome, and he, like I said, he is very proud to wear his shirts, and he does tell people, but it's when he wants to tell and who he wants to tell. And I like that. And I definitely want to keep, respecting him in that way.
What do you find is difficult about the experience?
I think for me personally, the hardest thing is the not knowing what he's going through. I understand what he's telling me, and there are times, like I said, that he's had sleepless nights, and and then when he's crying and he doesn't understand what's going on and why it's happening. As a mom, I think that has been the hardest thing for me to do, is watch everything happen and watch the tics go and not be able to stop them and just, take that pain away. As a mom, I wish I could just do something for him. And, and there's times when there's really nothing that I can do, but just be there. And that's been the hardest thing for me, I think.
Right.
Just that, because I think everything else, such as I thought that it would be hard for me to accept, or to, just because of knowing what people think of Tourette's and their assumptions about Tourette's. I thought that would be hard, It really has not been hard, maybe because we haven't had such big troubles in that, or we haven't had any, situations where he's been bullied or anyone has said something rude. That hasn't happened, and I hope it doesn't happen. But I thought that was going to be the hardest part for me. But no, I think I was able to accept it really quick, and just really now what has just still to this day has been hard is, not being able to help him in anything. I can't take the tics away. So that's been hard.
Well, at the same time, your recognition of that, I mean, over the years, his tics are going to fluctuate. And just like you were saying earlier that, there were periods of time where you observed fewer tics visibly, but, he would say, well, I have other tics, you're just not seeing them. Things are going to fluctuate, things are going to change, but, and there may be times where it really does kind of alleviate and maybe, who knows, it will kind of lessen as he gets into his teenage years and it'll just kind of clear up, I guess, as people say, but maybe not. And it's just your recognition of where he is with that and what he needs, I think, is the most important thing. And you're not going to cure him. It's just life is going to happen, and that happens to all of us. And we all have these things that, if my TS went away tomorrow and I was just magically somehow free of it, I would still have all kinds of other factors in my life that would be difficult to get through. And, dealing with loss, dealing with, just all the things you go through being an adult. But even there, I know I have support in my life, and, I'll have help when I need it. I have a really great family. I have really great friends. And, that ultimately means more to me than sort of any piece of identity with Tourette syndrome that I have. And so I just really applaud your way of going about it, and, making your family aware of it, and advocating for him at the school level. I mean, it's just all this stuff is going to have a better outcome than he might otherwise. And we know this because we hear this with other people who didn't quite have that support growing up. And it feels really good now, I think, knowing that, with the internet and the way we communicate nowadays and the number of resources that are out there, even if you do go out and you buy, a bunch of books and they don't necessarily have the answers that you're seeking, there are still, resources and chances to communicate with other people, with other parents who are in a similar situation. And I think the attitudes about it really bode well for kids these days with TS, just because there's that level of community out there via the internet. It would be great if, we could have support groups in our towns, and there was enough, kind of momentum and population to be able to do that. But because I've only been to one support group in my area, and that was great. It was fantastic, but not everybody has access to that kind of thing. Some people would have to drive hours,
Yeah.
and doing what you can with what you've got.
Yeah.
You're paving a really nice way for him. So I definitely applaud that. And I hope other parents really take this to heart and letting them be themselves. Like, TS is not going to be his identity. It's going to be part of it, but that's not, who he is in the end. Who he is in the end is ultimately what he wants to do and what he decides. So I think that's fantastic. And I think you guys are remarkable parents. I'm so happy I got to meet you guys and we got to do this, because I think this is really important for people to hear.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity that you've given us, because it is very important for other people to feel like they're not alone, because that's how you feel, well, at least that's how I felt. Mm-hmm. I felt like, everything was closing in and I was just alone, and it was really hard. But once you find that answer that you're seeking, whatever it is, and like I said, I found it in the podcast. I think just listening to everybody else's experiences and knowing that no matter what, he's going to be okay, and he's going to grow up and live a life. Whatever he does is whatever he chooses to do. Not,
Right.
This isn't going to define what his life is going to look like specifically. I mean, he
Exactly.
will always have TS, but I think now I realize that he's going to decide what he does and who he becomes later in life. And, and we'll still be here to support him. I wanted to introduce you to my baby. He's here. And
nice.
He's just going to say hi to you. Hi, Ben.
Hey, Angel, how you doing?
Good.
Oh, it's so good to hear from you. I've learned a lot about you tonight. It's really been a pleasure, and you got to have a really, really great mom.
Thank you.
School going okay? Or I guess you guys are kind of home from school right now, right?
Yeah.
What have you been doing? What have you been up to?
I've been just playing with my friends.
Cool. What do you guys like to do?
We like to play Roblox together.
So your mom said that you're pretty good with music. Do you ever want to play any musical instruments or anything like that?
No. You just like to listen to it? Mm-hmm. You're not going to be a DJ anymore? No. Oh, he said he was going to be a DJ for a while, but I guess he's changed his mind.
Well, keep that on the table, because if we ever have a Tourette's podcast party, you can help me make the playlist and we can DJ it together.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Do you want to say hey to anybody? Do you want to give a shout out to any of your friends or anything like that?
Shout out to Daniel Cosio. That's his best friend.
It's really been a pleasure, and it's been really nice talking with your family. And I think you're a very smart and lucky young man, and a very fortunate young man. And I'd love to keep in touch with you guys. And if you ever have any questions or anything like that about Tourette syndrome or anything, you guys can always reach out. And anytime you want, I'd be happy to answer that or talk on the phone or anything you want.
Thank you so much. Thank you, really. Thank you for helping my mom and dad understand what Tourette syndrome is.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It was so nice getting to meet them, and I think a lot of other families can learn a lot from them. So, Angel, thank you so much, and definitely be proud of who you are.
Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. It really means a lot. I actually, would like for him to get to know kids his age. When we've gone to the support groups, they've been older, and we haven't met anyone his age. And so he does know that there are people with Tourette's, and we've shown him videos, and because that's all we can show him. But it would be nice for him to talk to someone that has Tourette's and is going through what he's going through. And, just having that as, I don't know, like as an option, that would be amazing, actually, because like I said, it would be nice for him to just see and know someone in real life, because like I said, we do show him videos, and he has seen, but he doesn't know anyone. Yeah,
well, I mean, hopefully that opportunity comes up. And, in the meantime, too, this had kind of crossed my mind. But when I was a little kid, I didn't know anybody else in person. I would go to conferences, but I didn't have like a friend in person who I could, see and interact with in person who had Tourette syndrome. But I did have a pen pal. And that's something that the Tourette Association, which at the time was called the Tourette Syndrome Association, helped me set up, or helped my parents set up for me. And that was a really cool thing. It was a guy named Drew who lived in Cincinnati. He had Tourette syndrome, and we wrote back and forth to each other, and we traded baseball cards. And eventually we got to meet them. We took a road trip out there and we hung out. And it was, I I think about that pretty frequently. I mean, that was a really powerful experience because, you know, otherwise I just didn't have anybody else in my reach who I could interact with who knew exactly where I was coming from. So it might be fun to see if we could set up some sort of like, maybe within the discussion group and some other parents kind of, you know, reach out and see if there's any pen pal opportunities or email pal opportunities, whatever people do nowadays.
I know.
That could be fun.
Now they have, you know, FaceTime or, you know, things like that. So that would actually be really nice. I had not even thought about that. And that sounds actually like a great idea. So
that could be cool.
Something that I will look into.
You know, I'm not going to like give out your information to a whole bunch of people at once. So, you know, that's something that, we could just kind of work on behind the scenes. That could be fun.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that because, like I said, I had not thought about that. And that actually sounds great because now with the technology, we don't even have to live around the same area, you know, they could definitely FaceTime and just even that, you know, just to talk to someone and get to know someone, that would be nice. That would be really
That would be
good.
great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to one of my favorite episodes so far, and not just for selfish promotional reasons. I love what we did here in talking with a parent who's fought through it and had all the big questions and more, and landed in a place that sounds pretty good to me. I'd love your feedback. Contact me at tourettespodcast@gmail.com or through the contact form at tourettespodcast.com or in the Tourette's Podcast discussion group on Facebook, which has had a really cool week of interaction. Of course, I have to thank, you guessed it, Sophia, for always being there as a gigantic help to the podcast and to the greater community. Sophia, thank you so much. Thanks to the Tourette Association of America for the support that makes this podcast possible. Head to tourette.org, TOURETTE.org, to find tons and tons of resources and helpful information, whether Tourette is a part of your life or not. And also check out their COVID-19 info for Touretters. This is not an easy time for anybody, but people with Tourette syndrome have kind of a unique angle on this. Or rather, you could say COVID has a unique angle on people with TS, but definitely make sure you check out touretteconference.org for information on the free virtual conference coming up in May. Awesome agenda and list of activities. Tourette.org is the main hub and pretty much has everything you need. Geeks Rising is the best network this podcast could ever hope to be a part of, geeksrising.com, for this and other podcasts to get you thinking or to just unwind with. Tourette's Podcast is on all the big social media sites and apps, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so on. Patreon.com/Tourette's Podcast if you would like to give individual support to the show. And tourettespodcast.com is the homepage. We'll talk to you next week with another episode that I'm stoked for you to hear. Let's keep talking in the meantime. This is Ben.